Okay, we are live. Looks like we have audio, which is fantastic. So, I know it's, I didn't let the timer run out, but we're on time, so that's the more important thing. We had a slight technical hiccup coming into the stream because there was an unannounced update to OBS earlier today. So, oops. So, as you can see, we are drinking Stranahan's Colorado whiskey. I think I have quite a bit of this left, and I would like to finish it off just to make space in the cabinet. And we are clipping one of Stigler's favorite products from the Glorious Decision Games, Desert Fox Deluxe. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the upcoming Desert Fox Deluxe unboxing video, so stay tuned for that. All of the music in the stream, at least like as of now, is by Dancin' Dan Pancaldi himself, including that. So I'm going to talk mostly about Origins and how it went down, and we may have a couple of pictures, and there will be at least one additional video, which will be the loot video where I'll go over all the stuff that I walked out of there with, which was quite a bit actually. So let's first of all say hello to Dave Minery, John Longshore, Carl Creeder, Todd Walser, Dale Brady, Fast Hines, Strelnikov, Bill Simone, Rick Cox, Charles Latorra, John Stanley, Stigler himself, Jeff Beeler, Henry Sikorsky, Fat Ladies Fishing, William Bird, The Command Tent, Achilles, Captain C.C. Letow, H. Tuna, Fucko, Mike Orwick, Findle70, Agray Day, Stephen Roberts, Doug Gearhart, and Scott Bell. So far, and Messing Up Rules, welcome to the channel. Today's channel of the week, let's mention that, is Half-Assed Gaming. Please check him out. He has done, I think, some Empire of the Sun videos, but mostly great campaigns of the American Civil War. I thought of John because he watches the stream, for one thing, but also because, I hope to run into him at Compass Expo. And there was, I always leave Origins especially thinking that I didn't do as much as I wanted to do. And this year in particular, that was interfacing with folks that I ran into from the stream, and folks that were various publisher connected folks, and I just didn't have the bandwidth to do that. So if I blew you off during the convention, I do apologize. I do think that the Dealer's Room walkthrough video, as bad as the video quality was, it was kind of bad. It was very well received, so I may do that again. I may do it as a next, we're talking next year now, non-live stream thing, because I did this on my phone, right? And I will talk a little bit about what I have observed so far on Desert Fox Deluxe, by the way. With just using my phone, if I had just taken a video and then uploaded the video, there would have been, no comments, but I wasn't really able to pay much attention to the comments anyway, because, I was really trying not to walk into people, and it was fairly crowded in there. So let me first of all talk about that, okay? So, Brian Gash says, clip these counters with lighter fluid liberally applied to entire game near an open flame. So, Nikki Barr, thanks for stopping by. So let me talk about a little bit about Desert Fox Deluxe first of all. I had gone into Origins thinking, here's the three places I want to stop to buy stuff. Those being Decision, Enterprise Games, and Chaosium. Okay, I hit Chaosium first, Enterprise second, Decision third. I did that intentionally. And again, I'll talk about all that in the loot video. About all the various things. I went in wanting to buy Desert Fox Deluxe because I feel like there is a I think it is a bold game, in that it is trying to do a great deal, and I don't know that it succeeds at that, but I would like to be part of that conversation, instead of just saying, well, Stigler says it sucks. I don't know. So in this case, we're actually hoping to be able to have an actual opinion on this. The footprint on this is not as big as you think. It's like 7 maps, but most of them are like half-size maps. I've noticed a couple things immediately. There is a vassal module available on Decision Games' website. It's not the world's greatest vassal module. I can tell you that right away. The pieces are poorly organized. There are no scenario setups. You got to set everything up yourself. The footprint on the game is fairly large, but it's not as big as you might think because some of those maps are half-size maps. Well, all of those maps are really half-size maps. But that said, it's like super long and dangly. So it does have a weird footprint. But that aside, I think we're putting that with just for the infantry. Yeah, well, half size or smaller, but like I said, it is a weird footprint. I mean, you'll see it in the unboxing video, which will be coming along shortly. This week's unboxing video will be the very nice looking Granada from Compass Games. That'll be out on Thursday. Stay tuned for that. I would hope to have a role-playing game video on Tuesday, but that's tomorrow, and I don't believe I'm going to actually have time to do the video editing between now and tomorrow. So Desert Fox Deluxe is a combination of 3 games or 2 games and like an add-on of Desert Fox, which was a bird game, Trail of the Fox, which was a Douglas Niles design, I believe based on the Berg system, and Fox Killed, which was, I think, is something that popped up in Moves Magazine, but I could be wrong about that. So it's one of a very small number of games that covers the entirety of World War II in North Africa. On one contiguous map. I am only aware of 2 games that do that. That the 2 being, well, unless you count like parts of strategic level games. You could play it in Whiff, for example. The other one is War in the Desert, which is behind me, and you can't see it. So sorry about that. I did missed out on is not mentioned in the loot video. The piece of loot that I missed out on was an unpunched copy of Their Finest Hour, which was being sold by Luzaki for $85, and which I was talking to somebody about, and somebody else went and got it in the meantime. So there are absolutely unit IDs on these counters, by the way. They're not like set up in divisions, though, and mostly the units are smaller. They're regiments or brigades. So, in any case, we hope to be able to report on Desert Fox Deluxe in an intelligible way at some point in the not too distant future. Greyhawk Grognard, thanks for stopping by. So I will say that the color. This isn't really a problem, but the counter design and the color choices in here are not inspired, right? I don't believe that to be a real problem, but it is a bit of a missed opportunity. The maps look nice. I think Joe Youst did the maps, if I'm not mistaken. And Joe may have even done the counters for all I know, but I normally like Joe's counters a little better than I like these. I don't see that on the box back, and I don't like that either. I didn't really talk to Doc very much, to be honest about it, so it was more of a, hey, here's some money, I'll take these 3 things type of interchange. So I've got a line on a copy of First to Fight, which is, I think, the next Europa thing that I will grab. I'm going to preferentially look for the GRD revisions of those rather than the GDW originals. But I'm in no sense trying to get them all, because trying to get them all is like really expensive. Noble Knight has a copy of Second Front for sale for $500 right now, and I think it's in the shrink wrap. So Messing Up Rules asks how this compares physically to World War One Deluxe. Okay, so The counters are like the same thickness counters as I recall from World War One Deluxe. I don't think World War One Deluxe had the thicker counters that they are using now. I have confirmed, by the way, that Decision is now printing at least some stuff in China because Midway Solitaire Deluxe is stuck on a boat, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. Stigler, I think I'm going to take you up on that. All I have to do is like not forget about it. So the Decision Vassal Module 4.8 is, I mean, I'm glad it's there, but it's not great. Anyway, World War One Deluxe has a mounted board. It's really nice. It is quite a small game, though. I mean, it's not a big game. This is 2 counter sheets and 7 maps. So now they're not full size maps, but it's still a decent sized game, right? So, I mean, if you put this together footprint wise, it's probably the same number of square inches roughly as a 3 mapper, but it's longer than a 3 mapper would normally be. I don't think there's multiple. Now the new Battle for Germany, I can verify, does have the thicker counters, and it's quite nice. Their mounted boards are fine. So we got all those done, so we can grab a tray. Anyway, back to Origins. Let's talk about Origins, and I'm going to talk a lot about Origins as a wargaming event. Well, that's sloppy. Anyway, so Origins took up about half the footprint that it normally does, okay, in the Greater Columbus Convention Center. Henry, I should talk about that, but I do want to get to the Origin stuff, so let's hit that first. So Origins took up about half the footprint that it normally does, and it was a shorter convention too. Normally, in recent years, Origins has begun on Wednesday, and Dealer's Room opens on Thursday. This year, Origins began on Thursday, Dealer's Room opened on Friday. The dealers with whom I spoke all seemed very happy about the turnout and all that stuff. Fast Heinz, I have not heard that, and I see no reason to assume that they would do that. That would be not a precedented thing if they did that. I would not disapprove if they did that, but it would surprise me. Noble Knight does have a big sale going on right now, but I took a glance at the Wargame stuff and didn't really see anything that I needed. So the board game space, now this is like on Friday and Saturday, right? The board game space took up just a little more than half of what it normally does, and the RPG space took up a bit less than half of what it normally does. I did not even go over to look at the RPG stuff. I was aware of where it was happening. I didn't pay any attention to it at all because I had stuff to do. John Sai, thanks for stopping by from the lovely Philippines. I think I needed 2 trays for it. Part of that is that they're big, thick counters, and they're big counters, right? I did need 2 trays for that. So there was for the amount of space. I mean, so bear in mind, attendance was. I have heard no numbers. I don't believe Gamma has announced numbers. I'm not sure they will announce numbers. I have no information that's like official information. So this is, my personal anecdotal observation about how big a deal I felt like it was. It felt a little more crowded than Origins typically feels in that space. Okay. That boardroom area was enormous. It was just as big as it always is, and it was pretty full on Saturday. Okay. I was not in the boardroom at all because I didn't have a boardroom ribbon, and I'm tired of arguing with the nice boardroom people about that, and I didn't have a press badge this year, so we didn't do any of that. The virtual side, again, I did not look at all, and I don't care. There was, however, I will notice that there was more video game stuff in the dealer's room than you typically see at Origins. It still wasn't that much, but there was usually that amount is pretty close to 0, and this year there was more than that. Mostly those who are like student groups like the Ohio State Game Makers OSU group, for example. But Bandit is here, who was helping run, or really running, I was helping, the Armchair Dragoons area, which is the de facto wargame space in the main exhibit hall. That is a thing that I will be talking about in the coming months. So when I say things about next year it would be neat to blah blah blah, bear in mind that we have like 5 less months to do that organizing this year than we did last year. Well, or we normally have. So, all right, let me mention, Revolution Games has announced 2 new Blind Swords games, the Herman Lettman system, for pre-order. That is a good system. I do recommend that people should check it out, and they do have Rick Barber maps. So presumably... yeah, well, not presumably, but I mean, Rick obviously got that done before he passed earlier this year. If anybody knows the Rollmaster lineage, by the way, Terry Amthor, the co-designer of Rollmaster, has also passed away recently. Not sure what was up with that, but that is a thing that was happening. So I am not... I am unable to comment on the RPG stuff. I am unable to comment on the virtual stuff. I did not participate in any of that stuff. What I did do was run Commands and Colors Napoleonics, which went really well. Funny story. So I get there on Friday, right? And, you know, I live in town, so you'd think, oh, it's trivial to get down there. Yeah, it's trivial to get down there. It's not a long drive or anything, but you got to park, and it costs like $15 to park, and it's a headache to park and all that, and then you got to, you know, do the hike from the parking garage to the gaming area. So I get down there, and I'm like, I got this crate that I'm toting with me. It's got all my Commands and Colors blocks in it. I'm like, whoa, I forgot the box, the game box that has the board and the rules and the cards and the dice in it. So Don from Enterprise Games volunteered to float us an additional copy to get the thing off the ground, because we were set up to run more than one table. Mo, thanks for stopping by. But I ended up, and I said, sure, that's fine, thank you, Don. But then I felt uncomfortable with that, so I ended up buying the copy, and then I will turn that copy into a like travel copy or convention copy or whatever. So, and I'm, you know, pretty comfortable with that. Again, watch the loot video. I got a more extended version of the story. The loot video's not up yet. It'll be up this week, later this week, or next week. I do have to edit it, so there's that. It was $15 to park. This is downtown Columbus. Bear that in mind. There are also cheaper alternatives. You can absolutely park in the suburbs and take the bus in. As far as I'm aware, the municipal bus line in Columbus is free right now. It has been since the start of the pandemic. I don't think that's been changed. There are ways to mitigate that cost, but I enjoy having my car down there, too. The crate does have wheels. Yeah, I wasn't hauling it around. My feet... So, real talk here now. I was physically battered by the convention experience, by the amount. I did about 16,000 steps on Friday, and I'm still not walking well. I've got a heel problem, and it sucks. So one of the things I want to have happen is I want to be less of a fat ass going into the convention next year. That will be great. You can get cheaper parking down there too. Let me say that. I chose to pay the $15 for the parking garage that is right next to the convention center. If I had parked in the Vine Street garage, it probably would have been $5, or one of the open lots, it would have probably been $5. So bear all that in mind. So Todd Walser says code is no longer free. That's the Columbus Municipal Bus. That's unfortunate, but it's still $2 or something, or $1 or something like that to ride it. Now, you know, we got a pandemic happening, so what your comfort level is on a bus is up to you. So anyway. Yeah, I'm not going to get all bent out of shape over the parking costs. The parking costs cost what they cost. And considering, you know, it was a fraction of my total cost outlay. Most of the eating I did was in the Hyatt food court. I did go over to North Market once. North Market, this was on Friday for lunch. North Market was absolutely packed, like crazy packed, and I didn't want to deal with it again. I have done that, hauled stuff on a bus. It actually does suck, and I wouldn't do it again. The open lots that Brant's talking about down the street are an extra couple blocks of walking, and they're about $5. The Indian food that I got was the stuff from the Hyatt food court, and I really it's called Fame's Diner, and it's like half and half. Right now they only have one half open, but it's all the same food. One half is like hamburgers and stuff, and the other half is Indian food, and it's good. It's really good, and I ate it 3 days in a row. So, Tom Ullman, thanks for stopping by. I mean, New York City parking is crazy. If you have a car in New York City at all, I mean, if you're visiting, that's one thing. But if you like own a car and park it in New York City, you're paying thousands of dollars to park it. The naan is homemade. They literally have a tandoor behind the counter, and although it wasn't as good and fresh as it usually was because they're shorthanded right now, it was still really good. The naan is literally, they take it out of the tandoor, put it in a bag, and hand it to you. So, yes, it's totally made fresh. Parking lots in San Francisco suck, so I can't speak to that. So, I didn't play anything else, right? I walked around a lot. I took a decent number of pictures, but a lot less pictures than I normally take. And I did a lot of walking through the dealer's room. There were two things that were not war games and not RPGs that I would have bought had I seen them, and I did not see either one. One is the Dune Imperium board game, which is the new Dune board game, which is not the old Dune board game, which I have and which is great. I did not feel like braving Vindaloo on this particular trip. This is one of the best food conventions that I have seen. Because of that Hyatt food court. Because if you want to spend $7 for lunch, you can go get a 12-inch Subway sub. And that's a little more, it's like $1 more than a regular Subway, but it's not crazy money. Oh, those are tanks. Interesting. Okay. So... Ooh, Bill Simone, good call. If you hit Ob on the way out, fantastic call. That is my absolute favorite Indian place in Central Ohio. It is wonderful. There are two locations. Well, there's one location. The other one is called Cobb now, and it's in Bexley, and the other one's out on Grandview Avenue, and it's fantastic. Highly recommended. I love Indian food, so and my wife doesn't, so I don't get to eat it all that often. So I take advantage of these convention opportunities to eat a lot of Indian food. There is... the other thing that I was looking for and did not find was Vampire: The Eternal Struggle. There is a new edition of that out. It's one of the old first wave collectible card games that I liked a lot at the time. There's a new edition out. There's a game store in Cleveland that has it. I cannot find it for sale anywhere, including online. I could call up Immortals Incorporated in Cleveland and get it, I guess, because they have it. But the what? But anyway, I'm distracted now. But yeah, I can't find it for sale anywhere, including on the publisher's website. So I don't know what's up with that. They have had, even in years when it was not available, they had a big tournament at Origins every year, and they still did. They had a big tournament. It was right next to us, and I went over and talked to them. Oh yeah, it's for sale. Well, who's selling it? I don't know. So I scoured the dealer's room looking for that thing and couldn't find it. Cool Stuff. If you watch the walkthrough video, you'll notice that Cool Stuff didn't bring any. Didn't bring any games. They brought collectible cards, and that was it. So that's, I mean, if I wouldn't draw any conclusions from what we saw this year based on anybody's decisions that they made. But I mean, that does mean that I'm not going to give them any money. Another group that is usually there is Cubicle 2. Cubicle 2 is some kind of print manager or warehousing thing or something like that for a number of different publishers, including Mongoose Publishing. So I tend to, at Origins, head over to the Cubicle 2 booth and buy a bunch of Traveler stuff and get caught up in that way. They were not here. Yes, exactly. They didn't bring any cool stuff, and I didn't hand them any cool cash. The RPG budget went to Chaosium instead. I was tempted by the giant $200 fantasy trip box that Steve Jackson Games had, but John Longshore says that Gen Con, the shrimp place across the street, was charging $125 for a shrimp basket. I mean, okay, that's crazy. Cool stuff. You could still get GMT stuff from GMT from Cool Stuff. Pretty much everybody else and maybe some Compass stuff. Pretty much everything else in the wargame space they've phased out. Maybe not Academy. They might have Academy still too. So, I mean, if it's not working for them, then okay, I can't blame them. But it does mean that Cool Stuff is kind of off my radar as a place to go. To buy stuff. And I have checked both Cool Stuff and Miniature Market, which are my two normal places. Brant might know if Wormwood's based in Ohio. Not as far as I know, but maybe I don't think so. I do keep saying thank you, Brant. I do keep saying Cubicle 2. That is because of Cubicle 7. It is Studio 2. Yes, that is exactly. I've been staggering over that for years. I have pictures of this in the video. I did not get the shower curtain. My wife said, "Oh, I love it," but then I came home and said I didn't buy it, and she said, "Thank you for not buying it." Maybe I should have bought the throw instead. Matt Taylor says he's just found out he's not getting his big Traveler and Warhammer RPG order he made last year. So I do know that there is still some Traveler stuff stuck in the shipping pipeline. And I have some Traveler stuff in that shipping pipeline as well. And I probably should start reaching out to Mongoose. Speaking of that, I got other news on that score as well. I have received my rather late order from NWS. So NWS is shipping again. At least I got my stuff, and he looks like he's trying to dig himself out of the hole that he is in. Wormwood's prices, I mean, their stuff is really nice, and a lot of it is made out of premium woods and rare, Bolivian, snot woods and whatever. I did not see Paul Rohrbaugh. I did see Jason Matthews. One Small Step was there, but I walked by. I didn't have time to stop and chat, but I walked by, and they did not attempt to engage me in any way. They did have a Viking game that they had laid out on a table that looked really neat that they were not talking about. So I don't know about any of that. Aggrade Day asks about the Traveler card game. If you're talking about the Traveler constructible card game or whatever it's called, yeah, I have it. I have fooled with it. I have not actually, I wouldn't say I have played it. I think the rule book is dreadful. So I have not managed to actually figure it out. The game looks neat. But I haven't actually managed to figure it out. And I think I have everything for it, too. Chuck Turner, thanks for stopping by. Some people asked me about dice towers. There were a couple places with dice towers. The Metallic Dice Group, they had dice towers that were not ludicrously expensive. And a couple other places had dice towers as well. Mostly those were made of plastic. The Metallic Dice Peoples, I think, were the ones that were made of leather. So, Mender's apparently got one of his NWS orders as well. I'll be very pleased once Chris has everything behind him. Yeah, I mean, they were kind of sitting back behind their table and not talking to anybody, so I just don't know what was up with that. And I was not, I did not have the bandwidth to go and engage them, so that didn't happen. So Chris Dean, who runs NWS, had 2 family members die, including his father and his wife, in the span of a couple of months. So, I mean, that's crazy trauma right there. So, if he got backed up, and that's why, what can you say? It is a one-man operation. So, I made my dice tower, and I'm happy with my made dice. I made both my dice towers, I should say. One is made of cardboard, but it's real heavy cardboard, and the other is made of wood, and it's very light wood, but it's, I'm happy with it. I think, honestly, I think you're generally better off making your own, because mine cost me, the nicer wood one cost me a total of something like $30 to build. And I don't have tons of power tools, right? I did the sawing by hand, and I do have a belt sander. So I used that to do the sanding. Yes, your Hood Strikes North is here. I was actually going to call you, and I ran out of time today to do that. So yes, it is here. You can call me to pick it up. So anyway, yeah, exactly. So, and of course, for those who haven't heard, I mentioned it on the stream last week, but I mentioned it on the stream with Dan on Wednesday. I don't think I mentioned it on the Monday stream because I'm not sure it had been announced yet. Dean Essig's wife has passed away after a long battle with cancer. So our deepest sympathies go out to Dean and his family and friends as well. So. Ken Kluby, I'll have to ask Greg about that if he has it with him at Compass Expo. I do expect to see him at Compass Expo. So anyway, so I mean, we had a great time. So Brant and I have done a lot of talking about this over the last several years. About Origin's legacy as a wargaming convention, and there's certainly wargaming still happens there. There's still a wargaming area, but it is quite a small area. It is and this year it was understaffed. I mean, normally we have, Brant can tell you the actual numbers, but normally there's like between 15 and 20 people running the Armchair Dragoons stuff, and this year there were 4 people there. So it was not, don't draw any conclusions from what was seen this year. I should talk about that. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Colonel Luzaki collapsed at Gen Con and was hospitalized, and I'm very happy to report that Lou was in, there at Origins behind his booth, and he does look fairly frail. I'm not sure how old Lou is, but I gave him my best wishes, and I was very happy that he was there and could make it. I'm not sure Lou would rather go any other way than being at Gen Con, but so anyway, Origins as a wargaming event, right? So there's the wargaming area, which has a lot of great events that you do not see elsewhere, right? And I'm talking specifically about things like the command post exercises and stuff like that. Those are really good events that I really recommend people participate in. Even if you don't think you're interested in that, I think if you're a wargamer, you're doing yourself a disservice by turning down the opportunity to participate in some of those Kriegspiels and the command post exercises. They're really informative. I think you get a lot out of them. But bearing that in mind, there's a lot of things that are underrepresented there too, like things like standard hex and counter war games, right? That could be accommodated at a convention like that, not just the big stuff. There were 2 people with Ardwulf shirts, one of whom was Chuck, and the other one was me, that I saw. There were also two people with dirty Player's Aid shirts on. So I guess he was at Gen Con, but yeah, he was setting up his booth when he collapsed. So, not an optimal situation. So we're working on a plan and an opportunity, I think, to bring some more significant wargaming presence back to Origins. This will be a thing that occurs in the big gaming hall. That is of necessity right now because of the way the space works. But if we can get a decent number, and a decent number doesn't mean 75 people, right? A decent number means somewhere between 15 and 20 people who are going to be there at this thing, then we could get a room for it, right? I would still want that wargaming area on the floor as well, frankly. But we could, we can grow this thing, but we have to work for it. So there will be discussions about that in the coming weeks. And there will be also, let me mention, the Armchair Dragoons podcast, there will be an Origins wrap episode of that too. So we're recording that Wednesday, right. Agrade Day asks if there is hotness at Origins. I have no idea what that is supposed to mean. I know I was sweating a lot of the time. So that was a thing that was happening, but that's the kind of guy I am. Sweating all the time. I thought temperature-wise it was generally fairly comfortable. A lot of people get cold in big rooms like that. I was fine. I'm normally fine. There was some cosplay. There's never that much cosplay at Origins, but there's usually some. 6 actual, you didn't really miss anything. It's just been a running joke that's been going on that they're so big and successful that we shake our fist at them. So, but yeah, then there was some pretty impressive cosplay at Origins here too. Achilles asks if war games are underrepresented or are they just proportionally represented. They are proportionally represented, I think, frankly. But in an event that big, it is easy to miss them if you are not looking for them or don't know where to find them. So, Brant has kind of single-handedly managed to... the days of booth girls are kind of over, to be honest. Brant has pretty much single-handedly kept, that War Games area afloat for the last, 14 years or something like that. So, there was a fair amount of miniature stuff, actually, and a lot of that I typically don't take much notice of, but it was kind of happening. Some of it was close to us, so I did take some pictures of some of it. Some of it was pretty neat. So, now I didn't see Axis and Allies getting played, nor did I see not Normandy 44, definitely not, Memoir 44, but those are both things that typically have a pretty substantial presence at Origins in a normal year. It is very plausible that I just missed them. So, and that's the other thing is we're not under any illusions that like the monster game people, the OCS people, and the Labatt people, and the WIF people are not better served by wargaming focused conventions that are longer. That said, we can easily find a Europa game or an OCS game or a Labatt game that would fit in the format at Origins and the time that we have available, and we'd like to make that happen. So like I said, we're working on it. I always see people playing U.S. Civil War every year, and again, I didn't go in, and I'll mention, and Chuck was in there, and part of that game there were some guys, there were 4 people playing ASL in the boardroom. And I didn't get to look closely because I didn't go in the boardroom. So, so there's these, you're not going to be able to see them. There's these, just the way these counters are laid out. Some of these infantry units, because they're like a white cross on a white infantry symbol on a blue field, they sure look like Scotsmen. And it's a little weird. So, but I mean, I had a great time. Like I said, I always leave regretting that I didn't get to do more. And who runs the board? Oh, so the boardroom is being run by Buckeye Game Festivals. That is not the CABS, the Columbus Area Board Game Society, anymore. That is a separate organization now that runs the boardroom at Origins and owns the library and rents it to CABS, and also runs Buckeye Game Fest. Now, the next Buckeye Game Fest, and we'll be talking about this in the coming months as well. So, just to clarify what Brant is saying, CABS no longer runs the boardroom at Origins. It is Buckeye Game Festivals. That was at one point part of CABS, and it's a lot of the people that you see that are running it are CABS people, right? But they're not the people running CABS anymore. It's its own organization. I did see Lost Ruins of Arnak all over the place. I have seen that all over the place for quite a while, actually. Let's see if we can maybe trace some stuff up here. And it's supposed to be neat, but I don't know. It's not something I've taken a close notice of. Let's see. I suspect I'm going to have a hard time fitting this in one tray. Yeah, we're going to have a hard time fitting this in one tray, I think. I mean, I could probably make it work. 2 counter sheets per tray is normally fairly reasonable. Buckeye Game Fest is held in the Hyatt. It is the same Hyatt that is attached to the Columbus Convention Center. I mean, obviously. So, Fucko says CABS owns the library and rents it to BGF. I thought it was the opposite. I could be misremembering that. So let's assume that he's correct. I am perfectly comfortable with that. It may easily have conflated that and got it mixed up in my head. Mo, thanks for stopping by. We're going to be talking about the War Room. Dave, we're going to be talking about the War Room quite a bit in the next couple of months because I'm talking to them about that. And it is in April. They will have a War Room. But how good the War Room is does not depend on whether there's a room. It depends on what's happening there. There will absolutely be, some OCS happening there. I can tell you that. And it is at the same Hyatt that Buckeye Game Fest is held, that Origins is held at, where the RPG stuff at Origins has been traditionally held. All right, I think we're going to do it this way. We're making good progress here. Larry was there. I'm told Larry Bond was there. I didn't see him either, but I'm told he was there. Matt Caffrey was there. There was a slate of war rooms of War College seminars. Again, a lot less ambitious a schedule than we would typically find. But yeah, I have hopes that good hopes for Buckeye Game Fest as well. Sebastian was at Origins. I didn't see that. I think I would know that if Sebastian was there. Sebastian's game was at Origins. I will let Brant comment on that. Interesting. Because I would have liked to have said hi to Sebastian. Kevin Bertram, designer of a publisher through Fort Circle Games and designer of Shores of Tripoli, was there. We had a conversation with him. Jason Matthews was there. John Stanley asked about new war games not being sold as war games. So there's a game called Robotech Resurrection or something like that. That is apparently, I'm told, is coin inspired. Otherwise, maybe. I mean, there was a historical game that I looked at in the walkthrough video that looked a bit wargamey. But, you know, where that fell on the spectrum is hard to say without actually sitting down and playing it. Agray Day. So one thing that was at Origins was Sebastian's game Fleet Marine Force, which was on a table and a couple of events were run with. So you may have seen his name attached to that. But that was in the Armchair Dragoons area. And I think I would have known, and definitely Brent would have known, since he got the game from Sebastian, if Sebastian had been there. But I'm quite certain that he was not. So Robotech Reconstruction. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. They had a booth too. I didn't really see their product. March on the Drina, I don't remember seeing that being sold there. No, I take that back. I think I did see it. That's another one that I'm not exactly sure where it falls in the space. Dave, expect to be involved in the Origins 2022 discussion, by the way. Six Actual, what can we tell him about West End Games' Soldiers? Not very much. Really the only two West End Games war games that I have any familiarity with are Imperium Romanum, which I have owned, and Druid, which I did not own, but I was always interested in. That's a game about Boudica's rebellion against the Romans. That is a Richard Berg design, and therefore might have been interesting. So another thing, we'll circle back here. I don't want to eat the whole show with Desert Fox Deluxe, but Desert Fox Deluxe works for the Center for Naval Analysis. Sebastian Bay works for the Center for Naval Analysis. Although Fleet Marine Force, I guess, is not a Center for Naval Analysis game. So he is like in the professional wargaming circuit. And I know he's involved with the Georgetown University Wargaming Society as well. He was running it at one point, but what the exact title or relationship is, I don't know. There you go. Brandt has clarified that Sebastian is a DoD guy, Department of Defense, who is the faculty sponsor for the Georgetown University Wargame Society. So there's a lot of differences between this and the original Desert Fox. I mean, I'll tell you that right off the top. I mean, some of that I am sure comes in just because they combined all three games. But there's a whole layer of additional evolution on here too, and I it is too early for me to have an opinion as to whether that whole thing ends up working at the end of the day or not. So, well, sort of the problem with that is that I don't know that development is something that has really historically occurred at Decision Games. I do believe it is happening now, thanks to Doug Johnson. But it certainly is a weakness that they have traditionally had. Unless, you know, designers have their own people on it, like AKA John Butterfield. So, spin back here just to refresh our memory on this. Jeff Beeler mentions that Buckeye Game Fest will be held April 7th through the 10th, 2022. Buckeye Game Fest's War Room will start on April 4th. So it is a Thursday through Sunday event. War Room opens on that Monday, so you have an extra 3 days to game if you want to get the big game, the big war game together. And we'll see how that works. I may have to do some outreach on that. And there's been some discussion between me and Buckeye Game Fest about that, too. They might as well leverage it, you know, it being me in this case. John Sign, no, I have not done that. But, I mean, sometimes you do get stuck, too. So, Washington's War. Okay, so I bought Washington's War on Friday. It's punched and clipped and ready to go. Dan watched... I will talk about this a bit, but you watch the... If you want to see in detail what I picked up from Chaosium, watch the loot video. Oh, poop. I just put those in the wrong compartment. It's okay. I bought tweezers from Decision. A bunch of my tweezers went missing, and I'm not sure what's up with that. You're probably better off buying them on Amazon, to be honest, but I did buy a pair from Decision. So, I'm going to show the picture off. This is actually not all the stuff. I meant it to be all the stuff, and I left out a couple of things here. But I left out the Hollenspiel game that I picked up, so I'll talk about that in a second here. And I left out the extra copy of Hanut Tank Action 1940 that I picked up from Decision. This is the stuff I picked up from Chaosium and Enterprise Games and Free League and Decision. So yeah, quite a bit of stuff. Pick up from Hollenspiel. This game looks really neat. Empire at Sunrise, World War One in the Pacific. Really awesome concept. Telescoping scale looks super neat. So Player's Aid has a review of it, of course. I will not have a review of it anytime soon, but I have the game now at least. So yeah, I did pick up RAF, and again, I'll go into this in the loot video in more detail, which I haven't edited it yet, but it'll probably be about 20-25 minutes long. John Stanley, thanks for stopping by. RAF is a John Butterfield design. There's to be honest about it, I am aware of zero John Butterfield designs with bad reputations. So maybe I'm missing something, but I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head. Brant, thanks for stopping by. Agri Day, yeah, shelf space is a concern. I'm working on that. I am now completely caught up on Commands and Colors Napoleonics. Without going through all the stuff, again, watch the video. I am now completely caught up. I have everything for the Commands and Colors Napoleonics, and I guess I might as well order the Grand Battles thing that's coming too. That is another thing that is on a boat somewhere. And I'm not sure what other expansions you could have for Commands and Colors Napoleonics. I mean, you could have a Swede expansion, but, I mean, how involved were the Swedes before 1813? Not that much. I will mention that Free League are the folks that are doing a couple of interesting pieces in the RPG space. One of which is the new One Ring RPG, which is the same as the old One Ring RPG, except it's a new edition. They have just sent the PDFs of that around. Physical copies are not yet available. The other thing, as Matt Taylor mentions, is the new version of Twilight 2000. Now, I did not back that. I was pretty pessimistic about that. And had they had it available at Origins, I absolutely 100% would have bought it. John Sy, as of this current edition, this edition I think came out last year, it might have been 2019, and it has a mounted map and it's very fancy. Everything at Decision's booth was full retail as far as I'm aware. They might have been running some kind of special, but it wasn't not anything I bought. I think the PDF people have their PDFs already. The thing that makes it interesting to me is that it is explicitly designed as a hex crawl, which certainly the original game pointed you at, but the original game had a very 80s simulation-esque system, and this won't. I felt like that was going to be a bad match, but they also made changes to the background that I don't know are 100% airtight. But I really like the hex crawl idea, and you can always change the map, right? So I'm happy to deal with that. If you're searching for Grail war games, really Grail anything, Origins is not your convention. Convention bargain hunting has been overstated for a long time. Certainly, there have been years where you could get cheap stuff. That is a thing that comes and goes. It's never been completely reliable the entire time I've been going to major conventions, including Origins and Gen Con. And I'm talking specifically about Origins and Gen Con here. Lou had a whole rack behind him of old SPI stuff, though. I'll tell you that. So yeah, unless you got super lucky, which could happen. Like I said, there was maybe somebody's Grail game was at their finest copy, their finest hour. In which case they got it at a pretty good price. Where you really got the bargains was in the auction, and Origins doesn't have an auction anymore. So you might see interesting things in the Gen Con auction. Gen Con does still have an auction. So what hex crawl means is it is a specific kind of RPG play in which it is a sandbox and you have a map and the characters wander around the map and explore and find things. I'm not really doing it super duper justice by... Jeff, that was 20 years ago. That's the thing. Digest Group might have still been around in 2002, for all I know. I don't think so, but... you can... So it's a game that has explicit mechanics for that kind of thing. And there's been a bunch of games in that space over the last couple of years, one of which is Forbidden Lands, which I bought stuff for. And I've done an unboxing video on Forbidden Lands where I talk about this in a little more detail. Crazy Igor's prices weren't that great, but you could find Grail stuff at Crazy Igor too. But Crazy Igor's long retired, and Troll and Toad. I don't remember Troll and Toad having anything other than cards, but I might be mixing them up with somebody else. In the Gen Con auction, you may well be able to find. In fact, I suspect that you might be able to find some amazing Gen Con bargains in the wargaming space at that auction. Jason W. And this is an accurate way to put it. He says that hex crawling is basically a dungeon crawl, except it's on a wilderness map and it's outside. That's essentially correct. And there's a long history of that kind of campaign. Some of the old Judges Guild stuff, like that City State of the Invincible Overlord and the Wilderlands of High Fantasy, more Wilderlands of High Fantasy, that was exactly what that was. So, we don't have an Origins auction anymore, and that is unlikely to change anytime soon because of the... now, Stigler mentions the Facebook Consim Marketplace, and I have found some pretty good bargains on that. That's where I got my copy of The Devil's Cauldron, which you saw a tiny corner of. I've certainly missed more great deals on the Facebook Marketplace than I've gotten. Oh, Facebook spent the whole day down, by the way, and Mark Zuckerberg lost $7 billion. So that's fun. Whoever took it down real hard. They blew their DNS up. So the internet was not even able to find Facebook, let alone get to a server that then is down, although that happened as well. Yeah, Brent. I mean, the hex crawl is an old school style of RPG. And I don't want to use the term OSR on it, but because I don't like that term or that community very much. But for reasons, there's certainly plenty of fine. Let me caveat that there's plenty of fine folks in that space, but it's also a bit of a minefield. So. If Rehard Grognard hears me say that, he's going to be upset because he's in that space. And he is doing excellent work in that space. Undying Sands on Exalted Funeral. I don't know what that is. I did see a new version of Exalted at Gen Con, at Origins, and it was like some kind of collector's edition that was like $300 or something like that. I was like, no thanks. I liked Exalted back in the day. I ran it for a little while. All right. Robert Moffat asks, he says he went to Gettysburg and now he has an itch to try Great Campaigns of the American Civil War title. As far as I know, I haven't checked super lately, but I'm pretty sure they do still have Roads to Gettysburg 2 in stock. They may have a Black Friday sale, too. Of course, it may be gone by then, too. I don't know. The running joke was, Facebook's down. Where do I go to get medical advice? So, Exalted Funeral is an indie publisher. Okay. Doug Sunseth says he was done with old school D&D by 1980. I mean, I have the old school instincts. That's my preferred style. But when I say old school, I'm talking about the kind of things we played in the 80s, right? I'm not talking about 1974 white box D&D, which I think is a shit game, frankly. I mean, can you make it into a fun experience? You absolutely can. But you are doing that because you are an experienced game master running this shit game. You are not... Ron Nicholson, thanks for stopping by. Glad you're alive after almost being run over by a car hauler. But... the other thing is that, like, the clones of those original D&D, or the super early D&D, the white box D&D, brown box D&D, they all fix the problems of not having a whole role-playing game in those boxes. That was not a solution. Those are solutions that evolved naturally through play because they had to, because those things weren't spelled out in that game. I mean, the famous story is Ken St. Andre got a copy of D&D. He's like, this is trash. What do I do with this? I don't understand. And somebody explained it to him. He's like, oh, okay. And he put together a game that you could actually play. You could do that with D&D, but you were putting in a lot of yourself into it. The original D&D. And the way in which it was played certainly wasn't clear to me, even in like 1980. Game Time Adventures in Newark. So explain to me what Game Time Adventures in Newark is. Doug says that AD&D was better than White Box. It was not better than a couple of dozen other games that were available by 1981. I completely agree with that. If I am inclined to point at an old school version of D&D that I think is worth at least looking at, it is probably AD&D. And I would never have said this at the time, but it doesn't really matter whether it is AD&D first or second edition. They are the same game. There are not very many differences between them. The fundamental mechanical differences. Yes, they left out a couple classes. They left out some monsters. That was basically it. I'm aware of 0 media guests at Origins. That is something that Origins really hasn't done much of ever, but sometimes they'll have some people. 2019, I think they had a few people. I could have missed it. That's plausible, but I'm not sure I missed it. All right, let's see here. Just looking at stream health and making sure that it's okay. Yeah, within the last 5 years, they've had a few people. I think it was 2019 or 2018. They had like some Buffy people and that kind of stuff. John Longshore's, your answer to that is probably that there was probably like a million of them printed. Also, there's probably a lot of them that look like the 1936 edition, so people are selling them as the 1936 edition and were probably printed as late as the 50s. So, Doug, I was out at D&D pretty much by the end of the 80s, and in the early 90s I moved into other RPGs, a couple of which dated to the early 80s. Rollmaster's not quite as old as 81, but it was 82, 83. I think the earliest pieces did come out in 81. But by 83, Rollmaster was its own thing, and I spent a lot of the 90s playing Rollmaster, and a lot of the 2000s, the aughts, playing Ars Magica. So, Missing Seattle reminds us to all hit the like button. Not me, I'm busy. But please do hit the like button. It helps the channel, helps the algorithm, all that stuff. Jason W., I mean, Monopoly occupies a weird space in board gaming in general, okay? It is objectively a bad design. But on the other hand, it's super popular. People still play it. I don't know why. I think it's terrible. But, maybe newer editions of it are better. I don't think so, but... I wasn't really paying too much attention to t-shirts unless I noticed the hated Player's Aid t-shirts or Ardwulf's Lair t-shirts. E4 Airman says Game Time Adventure says D&D and some Pathfinder. Okay, well, that's fine. So does Amazon. The Guard Tower has, Call of Cthulhu and some indie. Even the Soldiery has some indie stuff, actually. I did not... Off-World Designs that Brant mentions, they weren't there, and they normally have some pretty cool t-shirts. None of the t-shirt stuff that I saw there was particularly interesting to me. The most interesting thing was the Dyson Logos shower curtain and throw blanket. Findle says Off-World Designs has retired. That's disappointing. They had some cool t-shirts. Jim Ozarski says he wants the Twilight 2000 RPG. I can't help it. It looks neat. I mean, I was pretty hesitant over it, to be honest, but I have warmed up to it considerably, and I may end up picking it up, but that'll be like a next year at Origins thing or something like that. We'll see. I don't know if any of the online vendors that I normally buy that kind of stuff from would sell Free League. They might. Certainly the Kickstarter was a big success, and the One Ring Kickstarter was an even bigger success. Oh, the Vent Dragons. So Brant will have the pictures of the Vent Dragons. They were pretty cool. Not even feeling like explaining that. John Sy, get out of here. Out you go with your dirty, filthy Player's Aid filth. Doug says that if you play Monopoly by the rules, which he's right, most people don't. Most people use the free parking rule, which probably extends the game, which is bad because it's a bad game. I certainly played Monopoly as a kid. It was the kind of game I could get my non-gaming family to play every once in a while. Risk, no. Played Risk with friends as a teenager. Played the pants off Risk, actually, as a teenager. But And I do think Risk is a better game. And Risk has evolved. The more recent versions of Risk actually do streamline Risk a little bit. So, and I'm Grant, is the line that you're not nailing, Stigler. Okay. Off-World Designs is closing. The business name will be carried on by Ray. Future designs will be produced by direct-to-garment printing and produced and shipped by a partner. Okay. That's too bad. I liked their shirts. So they did change the background for Twilight 2000, and I think part of that is because it's a Swedish company, and they felt obliged to include Sweden in World War III. So, support. Well, I don't know, you know. Certainly, there were... So, the last group to have... who did the last version of the One Ring RPG? They had a ton of books for it. And I don't know what their plans are. I mean, certainly they've done several supplements for Forbidden Lands, but they haven't done like as much as say Modiphius has done for the Conan game, for example. Alan Salazar, welcome back. Is asking about diplomacy. Funnily enough, there were at least 2 tables of diplomacy being played fairly close to us in the big gaming hall. I think Diplomacy is a classic game. I think it is difficult to define it as a war game in a conventional sense, but it is certainly a game that exists in a space parallel to and fairly close to wargaming. So if anybody wants to call it a war game, I won't argue with them. It is a game that the rules for which fit on a page. It is a game that really has no rules except negotiate. And I think I have a picture with them too from Origins from a couple years ago. I might be wrong. It's a neat game, and it is a classic. I do feel that it better. It was Cubicle 7, yep. And then they lost the license, and Free League picked it up, but then Free League decided that they were going to continue working with the Cubicle 7 version of the game, which is a decision I was very happy with. Fucko's asking, yeah, I need both of those things. So yes, if you're asking. Three Stooges Slapfest. So that's a thing with diplomacy. It is. I mean, this is probably somewhat exaggerated, but it is legendary for being the game that has broken many friendships. Certainly, people will get sore over diplomacy, and I feel that it is a game best played with strangers. It is therefore a really good convention game. John Sy asks about Republic of Rome, which I have played, which is a magnificent game. It is one of those Avalon Hill titles from the era in which Avalon Hill published many games that took too long to play. And like many of those games, it takes too long to play. But that aside, it's a really good game. It really simulates the conniving politics and the bribery and the graft and all that stuff that you had in the Roman Republic. It is a fantastic game. Highly recommended. Carl Creeder mentions that there is another game called Founding Fathers, which uses I didn't know that used the Republic of Rome system. That's kind of neat. If so, I had not heard that. That makes me interested in Founding Fathers, which I actually did come close to picking up at one point. Half price books had it for a full price at one point, I believe, because that's how they roll now. Now that they have run all of the actual bookstores out of business. So, Kingmaker, another good convention game, I agree. Maybe I should look into Founding Fathers. It is pretty. So, again, I didn't get as much done as I wanted. I didn't do as much video as I wanted, but I did more video from the Origins floor than I had done in the past. So I guess, we're making progress. Carl says, not the Z-Man Founding Fathers. Okay, I'm not sure which Founding Fathers we're talking about then, and I'm not going to look it up on BGG right now. Doug is right about Kingmaker, and that's a big part of the problem with a lot of those Avalon Hill games is they tend to stall. That is a thing that happens in Civ. It's a thing that happens in what's that GW game? Talisman. Oh my God, Talisman I think is the worst example of that. Let me mention this. So normally there's like at the Armchair Dragoons, rodeo, there are a bunch of different coin and related things going on. This year there were a couple slots that were the team distant plane game where you have basically two tables and there's limited communication between the two tables, and one table is the table on which the political decisions are made, and then the military execution of those decisions happens on the other table, but, being managed by the military commanders. It is thoroughly neat, highly recommended. Definitely folks should, it's another one of those things that I highly recommend people participate in. Even if they're, you end up thinking, I wouldn't do that again. You will walk away from that experience having learned something. So, Doug mentions Machiavelli, which I think is pretty much the same system as diplomacy, with a little more detail. That was a classic distant plane coalition move, by the way. That is the kind of thing that game is really good at. I think we're going to get 918? Yeah, we're going to finish this counter sheet and then call it a day for clipping tonight. And we'll keep talking, of course, because I'll be finished in the next 5 minutes. I am pretty happy with the progress so far. So of the stuff that came in, I've got a decent amount of blocks stickered for commands and colors. I have all the Prussians, all the Spanish stickered. I don't have all the extra miscellaneous blocks stickered from the other expansions. I have Wilderness War and RAF Punch clipped and organized. There was very little clipping involved in Washington's War, of course. So there's that 1960 Making of the President, which is basically, I don't know that it's similar to Kingmaker particularly, but it's, thematically what we're in the space that we're talking about. So anyway, great time. Stay tuned because we'll be talking about this in future, talking about plans for next year in future streams and videos. So stay tuned on all that. I guess I'll talk about that since I don't know that anybody's asked the question. If they did, I missed it. There was no vaccination policy at Origins. There was a mask policy, and they were walking around, scolding people for not having their masks fastened correctly or off. I will be honest. I am uncomfortable wearing a mask. It is not breathing problems. That's nonsense. It's just I'm not comfortable wearing it. I would prefer to not wear it. That said, I wore it the entire fucking time. So, except for when I was eating or drinking. I have not seen numbers, Jim. Doesn't mean they haven't, but I haven't seen numbers, and it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't release numbers for this year. Because the numbers are going to be goofy and meaningless this year. I look forward to folks behaving in a sensible way such that we can get back to normal in a couple of years. Why are we talking about Chainmail Girl again? I do remember her. Public health is the issue. I agree. So, you suck it up and wear masks. And generally speaking, I won't say I never saw problems, but generally speaking, the attendees were responsible. So, it is what it is. We have the situation we as a society have made resulted in the necessity to still be wearing masks a year and a half into this thing. So, I'm not sure that works. But Batman has an open mouth mask anyway. But you still have a great time. Right. It's been exactly. That is exactly right. I got a flu shot today, by the way. So just to get that out there. I was at the doctor and they offered, and I said, sure, why not? I think I didn't get one last year, but nobody was leaving the house, so the flu was at an all-time low. We're doing the Americans now, by the way. I mean, it does muffle your voice to some extent too, so it's a little harder to understand people. I have issues with that with other people wearing masks and talking. Not everybody has a loud speaking voice like me. I am complaining about it, but I still did it. So yeah, don't be shocked if they don't release numbers. So I didn't really have a problem with the 4-hour games, although I will tell you that I think most Commands and Colors Napoleonics games can be played in less than 4 hours. So I picked intentionally. I did Rollica as for the first day, which is like the first battle in the set. It's quite small. The second day I did Quatre Bras, which is quite a large battle, even though it was not that big of a battle. There's a lot of blocks on the board. Quatre Bras was the more satisfying experience all around. So I will say that. Jim, you would have been proud. We had the French absolutely roll the Wellington's army off the back half of the board on one of those Quatre Bras sessions, and the other one was bitterly fought to the last flag. I am, in fact, enjoying my beverage. John Keyports asks about BCS. So if you're interested in BCS, then the new Aracourt game is worth your time. I think BCS does a lot of really, really cool things. I'm not thrilled with the support rules, but the artillery support rules have changed in the new edition as of Panzer's Last Stand. So I haven't looked at those yet. I would have been more comfortable in a face shield as long as it was Raynexed, so that it wouldn't fog up on me constantly. I actually looked at getting one, and I couldn't get one in time. Well, right, that's the thing, is Quatre Bras not a big battle, it's a small battle, but because of the flexible scale of Commands and Colors, it's played with more blocks than Rollica is. So, that is what I mean. It's certainly not a big battle in the grand battle sense, or the epic, or whatever sense. So, the irony is, of course, that you're fighting over a crossroads at Quatre Bras, and there's no roads in Commands and Colors. So if you look at, I've done this. You look at the Ligny and Quatre Bras, which are fought on like adjacent battlefields at the same time. If you look at those two battles, Ligny is way bigger. There's way more troops involved. I didn't really take a close... I should also mention that Decision had stuff, not only from Decision, they had stuff from Revolution Games, they had stuff from Against the Odds, they had stuff from Legion War Games. They had some stuff from Compass. Enterprise also had some stuff from Compass. So there was quite a bit. There was quite a bit on offer there. Now, nobody really had any old stuff except for Lou, who did, of course, have old stuff because that's what he does. I guess the question is, can I get a second counter tray in this box? So one of the things you get in Desert Fox Deluxe is these cards, right? And it's a weird choice, right? You're like. They talk about these cards as though they were playing cards that you play, but what you have are like the setups are on these cards, and it's really a strange format. That I will tell you right now, preliminarily, I don't think really got pulled off quite correctly. So you can always play Commands and Colors on Tabletop Simulator. Which eliminates the problems. When I got home on Sunday, I watched the new episode of Foundation while stickering Commands and Colors blocks. And then, when I was done with the episode, I put the blocks away and watched it again, because it was really good and I wasn't paying sufficient attention to it because I was paying too much attention to the blocks. So there's that. The Hollandspiel and White Dog stuff was being sold up by Catastrophe Games. I've already mentioned that. Catastrophe's doing some interesting things too, in addition to Hollandspiel and White Dog. It's just that everything else, I felt like everything else, other than maybe, I keep thinking about things like the Schult campaign, which they didn't have, by the way, at least not that I saw. I should be able to get all these counter trays in one tray. All these counters in one tray. The rule of thumb I use is 2 normal half-inch counter sheets of 280 counters can go into one counter tray. Where's the booze? Now my preference is for... So, I might want to have an episode about this, because I think there's something to be said about blocks as used in the Commands and Colors system. Brent, there was some discounting happening. Now, there's a lot of board, like 80% of the vending in that dealer's room is board games, okay? Board games or card games. And I paid very little attention to that. So I'm going to talk only about RPGs and war games. And there was some discounting from the RPG people. So booths I paid attention to. Decision and Enterprise. Enterprise had a whole table of discounted GMT stuff. And their other GMT stuff was either at retail or was other non-GMT stuff that was at a reasonable price. They did also have counter trays. They sold out. Cool Stuff has not had war games for at least 3 or 4 years, so there's that. There's actually talk about Starfleet Battles coming back to Origins next year. By the way, not the Captain's Hat tournament, that's dead, but the people doing impromptu Starfleet Battle stuff. I met people. I met Chuck and some Players Aid fans that I shook my fist at Origins this year. Plus people I see every year pretty much. So Decision. They usually have a special, but it'll be like a specific special, like get Wellington's Victory for $150 or something like that. I didn't really look at that. None of the stuff that I bought from them. I bought 3 things from them. None of them were on sale. Their other publisher stuff was all at MSRP. Like I mentioned, Enterprise did have some discounted GMT stuff, including a lot of really good stuff. It's just that I already had a lot of it, except for Washington's War, which I grabbed. They had... the Free League stuff I did not notice was discounted. The Steve Jackson Games stuff I did not notice was discounted. The Chaosium stuff, a lot of it was discounted. The brand new stuff maybe wasn't, but a lot of the other stuff was. All of the, other than Red Book of Magic, I think the maybe Pegasus Plateau, I think all of the Chaosium stuff I bought was discounted to some extent. Brant asks about Cool Stuff primarily carrying GMT. Enterprise Cool Stuff was not really bringing that much wargaming at any point to Origins. Okay, at one year they had a decent chunk of MMP stuff and some GMT stuff and a couple of things from Compass, and I was super excited to go the next year. I'm like, oh, I got all this money, I'm gonna set them, I'm gonna buy this and this and this and this from Cool Stuff, and they brought no war games. I'm like, okay. So the zombie side people were there too, but I didn't pay any attention to that either. Decision may have done discounts on the magazines. Again, I did not really pay attention to that. The only magazine game I bought was Hanut, which is brand new. They did not discount that. Starfleet Battles is still available. As Brant mentions, it is Amarillo Design Bureau. You can Google it. It is all still for sale. It all still gets happening. It's all still Steve Cole doing it. Steve Cole? I think I get the name right. Yeah, so, I mean, there was that whole discount table Chuck's talking about. He got Red Storm for $60. Great price. That box is packed solid with cardboard, too. Let me think of who else was there that I, noticed. Green Ronin was there. I didn't notice. I'm not in the market for anything that Green Ronin has. So I didn't notice if they were discounting. Indie Press Revolution was there. I think they did have a few things that were discounted, but generally speaking, not. It was all MSRP. Very much worth your time stopping by Indie Press Revolution. They had tons of interesting games there. Not all of which are really indie games, by the way. The bags that Cool Stuff is kind enough to give out every year are dynamite. They are fantastic. So Ken is not happy with Hanut, I guess. So sorry, Ken. Where I'm going to find that out for myself. The Devil's Cauldron. So MMP made an announcement today about stuff that is coming. So let's talk about shit. I forgot to do the social media posts. Too late. Let's see if I can find that. Twitter was not down. Green Ronin does do the Expanse RPG. I'm a big fan of the Expanse. I'm told the RPG is good. I'm not in the market for an Expanse RPG. All right. ASL Starter Kit number 4 reprint should be back in stock by mid to late October. Move that back to early to mid-November and you're probably accurate. Hollow Legions. Parts are being finished to submit to the printer and at the printer. They hope to have everything in-house sometime in November. That probably means that December is the likely shipping time frame for Hollow Legions. ASL Manila Sword and Fire counters are being laid out and should be ready to send to the printer in the next couple of weeks. They do print domestically, so expect that to... I suspect that means early Q1 of 2022. ASL Pocket Rules, Chapter H, and the Charts Pack is after Hollow Legions. They want to have it ready around the same time as Hollow Legions. So again, November, December. GTS Race for Bastone. Counters are getting final checked. Should go to the printer this week or next week. Again, I suspect that what that means is probably Q1. Ares games. I meant to look more closely at Ares games, and I really only checked to see if they had War of the Ring, which they did not. They do the Wings of Glory and Sails of Glory. Those are interesting. Special Ops number 10 is in production. SCS North Africa is some parts are in-house, counters are at the printer, and that's it. So that's the news. All right, I have high hopes for Hanut. Bearing in mind that I think the high hopes for it is not necessarily that it is necessarily the most engaging encounter in the course of World War II. I'm not sure that it is. But as a vehicle for teaching and learning GOS, I think is what I want it for. And I have high hopes for it in that context. So, Academy Games. I should mention Academy Games. I always forget them because even though I kind of walked around It's easy to kind of miss that they're selling stuff out of that booth, just the way the booth is set up. They did have some demoing areas. They were selling stuff. Revolution Games Fall Sale. I think Poland Defiant is a really neat game. Revolution Games also does Stonewall Sword and Longstreet Attacks. Those are worth your time as well. I did see sales on Wings of Glory, and I saw those on tables as well. Alan Salazar asks about Proud Monster. It's got a pretty good reputation. Let me put it that way. I think the version of it to have is the Proud Monster Deluxe from Compass. It is it's got a very weird layout. And also, it like ends the game in like mid 44, as I recall, which was weird. And that's a weird choice, and doesn't go all the way to Berlin. It's another weird choice. But there's a number of like top level War in the East games that don't. So, Königsberg actually might be worth your time as well. From Revolution Games. They've got some very good stuff. What do I got on the shelf? I got something on the shelf here. Is this it? Yep. Poland Defiant. It's a nice game. And this campaign is more of a contest than people think it was. Okay, I got the bags upside down, so I got to put it upside down. But that campaign was more of a contest than people think it was. It's a more interesting game, and it's the pressure's on the Germans too. Academy Games do have Jigsaw puzzles. I saw that. They're pretty nice too. Ken says you're better off knowing Gauss first. I think that's probably true, but that's always going to be true, right? The best new war game is the game that your buddy already knows how to play and is willing to teach you. That's the ideal first war game. So that's always going to be true. So I have some experience with Gauss. I am hoping to use Hanut to improve, or Anu, I suppose it's probably pronounced. Jim can correct us on the mangled French pronunciations. Although it's not in France, it's in Belgium. So there's that. See, I probably wouldn't have that problem with the TEC. Now, one thing that I will say that is, if you're going to try to do Hanut, I strongly recommend photocopying all those charts on the map and using the photocopies rather than the charts on the map. There's a lot of very dense charts on that map, and I think using the map versions for reference would be a giant pain in the wad. So I don't recommend it. There may be a problem with retreat obligations too, but I probably would blow through that as well, having played the full thing. So Rick Cox mentions that the Gauss rulebook is god-awful. I will tell you that the current Gauss rulebook is about 2 orders of magnitude better than the original Gauss rulebooks, which were in fact total garbage. Fury at Midway, actually that looks, I haven't looked at that, but that actually does look neat. Chris Helm, Song for War. So, Chris, thanks for stopping by. We need to, please send me an email at ardwulfslair@gmail.com. All one word, no apostrophe, ardwulfslair@gmail.com. And we will set something up. I think I got some pictures, which I will percolate out for social media. Their game, Song for War, is a World War II in the Med game, which looks very intriguing, and I just did not have the bandwidth to go over there and hang around and learn more about it. So we need to set something up. Most obscure game I saw being played, I mean, in what category? That's the thing. That's hard to say. I mean, there are years where I see 2019 Freedom in the Galaxy was on the table. I mean, Brand is right. Fleet Marine Force is a game that has been seen by a very small handful of people outside the Marine Corps or the CNA. So I would assume that it is probably by definition the most obscure game that we saw. Ken, I think you're probably right about that. That's true, but I still like the game. So there's that. It may not be the most authentic simulation of Danzig specifically, which is a very unusual. The way that Danzig fell is unusual in ways that are not traditionally captured by most war games. So Galicia, John, which Galicia is that? I mean, there's a bunch of them. There's the one from Worthington. There's the Galicia from the SPW Galicia, which is the one I have. There's the Galicia game that Mike Resch did recently through Paper Wars, which I will probably pick up at Compass Expo. Boy, that's delicious. It's got a very sort of honey notes to it that I really do like. And we have a ton left, too. Yeah, we got half the bottle of this stuff left. So we'll be going through that for the next couple of weeks. We'll see. The Khalil is gone, so... Ken, when you say it's a great game, which game are we talking about now? Because now I'm not sure which game you are referring to. Okay. John Longshore's talking about the Mike Resch Galicia. That does look pretty good. I think there's a correction in the victory conditions that has been issued. Justagard did some video on that, and the victory conditions seemed a bit broken. But victory conditions, generally speaking, are easy to tweak. Okay, so I would be willing to just say we're gonna just tweak those, and we'll be happy. It does nevertheless look like an interesting game. Did I pick up any whiskey? I did not. I don't know what the whiskey landscape looks like in Michigan, and honestly, I don't have space for more whiskey right now. My shelves are full of war games, so. Summer Lightning. I thought Summer Lightning was about... I'm thinking of Fateful Lightning. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Summer Lightning might well be on the Polish campaign. I was going to say, wait a minute, that's about Gettysburg. Burning Mountains from Compass. Austria-Hungary versus Italians, World War One. Dan, who's the designer of that? Is that new, or is that an older piece? Lagavulin 16 is really good. I have a bottle of that downstairs. It went real fast. So there's the remnants of a bottle downstairs. Like I said, I need to clear some space. I will say that the Ohio whiskey that's made by Middle West Spirits, they have not whiskey, but they have a honey vanilla vodka that used to be delicious. It is ass now. It is way downhill from what it was. So Ken says Poland Defiant is a great game. I think Poland Defiant is a really neat game. It might have some issues, but that's a thing you can fiddle with. John mentions the Europa Simulazioni Caporetto game, which is either coming or is out. Summer Storm is the Gettysburg game. I'm thinking of Fateful Lightning, actually, but Summer Storm is also a Gettysburg game. Summer Storm released by Clash of Arms? I think so. Also is a Rick Barber design. Not just a Rick Barber map. Rick designed the game as well. Mike Anthony, yes, we did mention the Revolution Games sale, although we didn't talk about it in detail. Let's actually pull that up. Hold on a second. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. We mentioned that it was happening. I'm going to pull up Revolution Games webpage. Okay, October Revolution sale. Okay, here you go, comrade. Games on sale. Thunder. So the Day Was Ours is Wilson's Creek. That's upcoming. Thunder at Dawn, or is Thunder at Dawn Wilson's Creek? Thunder at Dawn is Wilson's Creek. The Day Was Ours is First Bull Run. Those are the two games on pre-order. Okay. The Deadly Woods is their newest release, I believe. That is the Ted Racer game about the Battle of the Bulge using the Dark Valley chit pull system. It is getting very good press. Sales stuff. Stonewall Sword. Can vouch for. So blind sword system. It's a nice system. If you really want like regimental level Civil War, but you do not want something as complicated as either Line of Battle or Great Battles of the American Civil War, then I would highly recommend looking at the blind sword system. And you're about to get 2 new battles in that system too. All with Rick Barber maps that are truthfully a bit hard to read. Celis is a part of the Bulge. It's like a little section of the Bulge. The Königsberg game I haven't played, don't have it, but it looks good. Longstreet Attacks, another blind swords game. This is a big one, actually. It's not the whole. It's the second day, with Longstreet's core moving in. I've got this one and can also vouch for this. Pacific Fury Guadalcanal. I don't know if this is any good, but it's $18, so it's probably worth taking a chance on. Poland Defiant is $30. These are probably Ziploc bags, by the way. It'll tell you if they're boxed versions. Red Typhoon Soviet Counteroffensive in 1942, $26. That's pretty cheap. Thunder in the Ozarks. I have playthrough video of this, so check that out. Again, blind sword system. This is Herman Luttman's system. It is a clean, easy to play regimental level Civil War system, and that's $30 too. Again in the Ziploc. Patton's Vanguard, which is Aracore, $22, super cheap. And Gazala the Cauldron, if I were interested in that. Is this? Yeah, this is. This is Gazala. So if you're interested in the Desert War, this might be a thing that you could look at. I don't really remember having. So I have a complaint about blind swords that's not really a complaint. And I will say that the Rick Barber maps in places are hard to read. The way that chits work, and I said this in my preview video of Herman's new game, the big Gettysburg game, that's still coming from Mark Walker's company. The chits really play more like a hand of cards than chits. So this is not really a problem. It's just weird. In that you have a hand of chits and you decide what you're going to play, rather than you draw a chit and then that's the activation. I mean, that can happen, but you can also have an ability chit that you then pull into your hand and play it when it's advantageous to play it. Finn, thanks for stopping by. So yeah, the maps are very flavorful, right? So do not misunderstand that. Rick's style is hard to read in places. I will also say that it is a bigger problem on Vassal than it is if you have the maps personally in front of you. I do not need any Gazala games. I have my fill of Desert Warfare is covered by 4 desert games that I have. I'm good. I just bought another one. I'm cool. So, Stegler, I kind of understand why you feel. I mean, they don't remind me of Token, but I kind of understand why you might feel that way. Kevin Bertram, you've missed everything. You've missed the entire shit-talking about Fort Circle games this entire time. I'm kidding. We did mention that you were there, but that was pretty much it. And we got about 10 more minutes. So yeah, easy to play system, blind swords. It's worth looking at if you're into Civil War battle games. And then again, just circle back to this. The Day Was Ours, which is First Bull Run, and Thunder at Dawn, which is Wilson's Creek. Boxed editions of both for quite reasonable prices. These aren't huge battles. Let's look at Thunder at Dawn. It's added them to my cart. Looks like it's 2 counter sheets. and they're good looking counters too, without having tons and tons and tons of info on them. So, and it looks like it's one map. So, yeah, David Harrison mentions Herman's latest game, A Most Fearful Sacrifice. Now, that is a Blind Swords derived system, but the scale is a bit different, and there are some changes. The chits are, in fact, cards in that game. That looks very interesting, and, I mean, check out my preview video of that copy that made the rounds. So, yeah, but I like to have a box. They make nice boxes, actually. There's Just a Guard. We talked about your playthrough of the Mikeresh Gazala, not Gazala, now we got talking about Galicia game from a few months back. So I'm probably going to pick that up from Compass when I head up there. I may just buy all World War One games from Compass. I don't know yet. We'll see. They certainly have plenty of selection. I've heard good things about Celis, actually. It's just that I don't need that. That's kind of my reservation there. I just don't need a game that covers part of the bulge at that scale. I'm just not sufficiently interested in it. Which does not mean anything in terms of whether you should buy that game or not. I have not played Washington's Crossing. And that's... I forget who that is, what battle that is. It is in a handsome box that makes me think that it is part of the same series as the Civil War stuff, and it isn't. Washington's Crossing is Winter Campaign of 76 to 77. That actually sounds interesting. Campaigns of the American Revolution. That sounds very interesting, actually. The map looks nice, too. If that's operational level Revolutionary War... Ken, you got my email. Send me a list. Warsaw 1920. That's interesting. I would consider a Russo-Polish War by revolution. So yeah, like I said, if this is a boy, the screenshots here are trash. If this is an operational level Revolutionary War game, that's something that I'm really interested in seeing, if so. The closest thing I have to that is that, 1776. Which is not... John Sai, thanks for stopping by. No doubt it's 1:00 in the Philippines right now. 1776, like War and Peace, on which the system is based, is really at heart an operational system. Trevor just asked about streaming. Tonight, I believe the streaming has gone just fine, because we are not using Restream anymore. We are using just OBS. We went back to doing it the old way. And when we do the stream with Dan, let me mention that we will be streaming with Dan on Dan's channel at No Enemies Here this week at Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will, when we get back to my channel, we will not be using Restream. We will just go back to StreamYard. It just works better. Restream is the same price for super flaky service. And I'm not going to pay them again. So... again, a pretty much complete selection of Revolution games available for sale at Origins, by the way, from Decision. John Longshore mentions Gilbert Collins' game War for America, which unfortunately I don't expect by November. But I'm looking forward to that big time. I'm very curious to see what Gilbert has to say about that topic. Alan Salazar mentions, like I said, I do think that from his video, I think the victory conditions do appear broken, but I believe that's easy to fix, and I think fixes have already been suggested for that on BGG. So, So we'll see. We do intend to wrap up. I think we're going to wrap up our game of NATO tomorrow. It's looking like it's going to be a NATO victory, but it's going to be real close. It's going to come down right to the wire. I think we have 3 more turns to play through, and that should take us a couple hours. So we're all pretty happy with the game. It's going to be very interesting when the new Third World War comes out, so we can start to look in comparison and contrast between that, which I'll be playing again for the first time in several years, and Bruce's new version of NATO, which is significantly revised from the original game. The scale is different enough. I'm getting hiccups at the end here because I don't have water with me. Matt Taylor, the best starting point for Rev War is either Washington's War or Liberty or Death. That is in print, right? You want to run down 1776? Maybe. It's an interesting game from an operational standpoint, but the historiography on the Revolutionary War has changed a lot, since, at least what I've been seeing, since the 70s versus what we have now. So I think that you're going to get a better sense of the conflict from either of the games I just mentioned, Liberty or Death or Washington's War, than you will from... and even though Washington's War is not new, right? It's based on We the People from Avalon Hill. But that's still a game that's 15 years later than 1776, which is strictly a military simulation, right? Yeah, the NATO game we're real happy with. What it doesn't do is it doesn't treat the air in much detail, so it feels very artifacted in terms of it works in terms of the output that you get out of the game, and in terms of the time scale that you're dealing with, because the whole campaign lasts like 2 weeks. Of real time. So I think it works, but what it doesn't give you is a sense of NATO air superiority and rapidly deteriorating Warsaw Pact air capabilities. That is something that you do not see in that game. Now, Justiguard mentions at the battle level, the Battles of the American Revolution series. This is the Mark Miklos series from GMT. This is highly regarded. In particular, that American Revolution tri-pack that's available right now with Guilford, Saratoga, Brandywine, and Utah Springs is a tremendous value. There's 4 battles in there, extremely high production values. It is a total brick and is very much a value-packed thing. So if you're interested in the tactical side of American Revolution, then that is where I would point people. And it's easy to play. Fast Hines mentions End of Empire. That's another one that I might pick up from Compass when I go up there. That is I've heard not awesome things about it, but is a very interesting concept. It's basically like a game system to fight all of those flintlock and musket type wars, from the French and Indian War to the American Revolution, on the same map with pretty much the same rules set. That's very intriguing, and I don't know that it pulls that off, but it's very audacious too. So I'd be curious to see, even if it fails, I think it might be interesting to take a look at it. Washington's Crossing, if 1.14 miles per hex, first of all, that's a weird scale, but if it's 1 mile per hex or thereabouts, then that does suggest that it is operational. John Longshore, so that's the thing. There's no airfields to grab. You can do NATO deep strikes, but Warsaw Pact can launch chemical attacks against the NATO airfields, which deteriorate NATO's air capability, where the Warsaw Pact's air capability really only deteriorates based on the table column that they're rolling their air points on each turn. So there's no like air superiority battle or anything like that. It's just points that you can then allocate to various things. And it's a little unsatisfying. The only other complaint I would lodge against it is that I think the markers are a bit ill-considered. There's a lot of markers that are like the chemical attack markers. One side is for persistent chemical attacks, the other side is for non-persistent chemical attacks. It doesn't say which one it is. On one side the symbol is filled in, and on the other side it's not. Which side is which? I don't know. We just made a decision as to which side was which, and we might be right, and I don't know if we're right or not. And that's a weird choice. It would just been better for them to put that persistent, or P or whatever, on one side of the symbol. There's a bunch of different markers that are just different looking explosions. And it doesn't say what any of those mean either, and you just kind of have to memorize it all. This is an incredibly minor complaint, by the way. I'm unhappy with the way the markers were designed. Otherwise, we think it's working out fabulously, and I have no other serious complaints about it. The production values are really high. I'm very happy with the game. I'm very happy with the rules. I think it's well designed. I can't really comment on how it compares to the original because I've never played the original. But we are very happy with it, and we will absolutely be playing it again. Anyway. So I have heard really good things about Battles of the Age of Reason, but it's one of those things where it's like, I don't have the interest in this period to get into this super detailed heavy mechanics system. Command Tent mentions some stuff about Washington's Crossing. I'm obviously going to have to look into this. And by look into this, I mean order this like today. And it's $25 too, so... So let's in real time here, let's spend some money. I want to say I saw one of the BAR games at Origins as well. I forget whether that was at Enterprise or at Decision. I think it was at Enterprise. It could be nuts. Jeff Beeler mentions a game called 13, The Colonies in Revolt, designed by Richard Berg. This would have been a TSR era S&T game. Would be interesting to see. I'm going to guess and say that game is probably fairly inexpensive and is probably worth a look because it's probably inexpensive. Dave, who is a big booster of BAR, says it has tightly written rules and wonderful charts. I've heard that it is essentially, once you know the game, you're basically playing it off the charts, and that's great where that is possible. So, looking at the selection here, I think we're looking at Washington's Crossing, we'll look at Königsberg, and we'll look at across the Narva. I think that's what we'll look at. Look at this Iashima too, but I don't know about this. Yeah, I think we're going to say no on that. Red Typhoon looks neat though. So the issue with Labatt is that there are multiple rule systems. Labatt has more than 3 rule sets. And the trouble is that not nobody, but everybody has sort of this different idea about how Labatt is supposed to play. That is sort of this unique combination per person of their personal experience with whichever of the game systems that they're interested in. Some of which are a little more complicated than others. But you can have 2 people playing at the same table that have different rule sets in their heads that are not either any of the written rule sets. They're a combination that has sort of organically arisen. And it all kind of works together, but it's a very unfirm footing to put the game on. And that's my big reservation with Labatt. The other thing is that it is a super detailed battalion-level Napoleonic system. And I don't think that I particularly want to play battalion-level Napoleonics. I am very happy scale-wise with the brigade scale of the Library of Napoleonic Battles. So anyway, we are out of time, so I'm going to call it now. Do stay tuned. The only other video I have queued up at the moment is Thursday's unboxing video, which is of Granada from Compass Games, which looks really neat, by the way. So check that out. I'm going to try and get another video up this week. If not, there'll be more Origins video. There's a loot video, there's unboxing videos, all that stuff. I'll be cycling this stuff out for the next several weeks. So stay tuned on all this. Please do tune in to the stream on No Enemies Here with me and Dan on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't know if we're on Daylight Savings Time or not anymore. I hate Daylight Savings Time, but it'll be 6:30 Eastern Time. Anyway, it's been a tiring weekend, and a very tiring day, actually. So we're going to call it here. I would like to thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time. Do tune in next Monday.